Hi and welcome. So if you happen to catch my videos of the shop tour, you might have seen the bit about the Enerpac pump and hydraulic ram. There's a 10-ton hydraulic ram that I found in the trash at work. It was part of a conduit bending system that would bend like 6-inch conduit. It was huge. I didn't salvage any of the dies because I really don't have a use to bend anything that large. I thought about it, but I have to be very careful what I get because I don't have room to store much in here, as if you watch the tour you'll probably be aware. It didn't come with a hose, so I ordered a genuine Enerpac hose. I bought it off eBay here, and I was really excited because I got the ram all hooked up and tighten this guy off and pump it up a couple times, and look, it's all working. Let's see as it pumps up. It wants to stay, but you notice the massive amount of leaking. It's just like a sieve, so I'm not quite sure what is causing all the extra leaking, but it's really bad. So as a result, I ordered an Enerpac seal kit. Let me put this stuff around it here because it makes a huge mess. And where'd it go? Here we are. And so we're going to try and put that in today and see if it fixes the problem, because I wouldn't mind having a 10-ton Enerpac ram. To buy this guy new is about $500. This is the basic seal kit, and it only comes with the basic seals, like obviously. But there is a more advanced kit that comes with more parts, including some of the threaded on locking rings and whatnot. I did not get that one. That's almost $100. This kit was $30-some, so pretty expensive. Well, let's just see if we can have some success here, because again, it might be really nice to have an Enerpac ram. Oops. When I bought this hose, I had to learn about hydraulic fittings, and there are a ton of them out there. Quite a difficult topic, and a lot of them look very similar, and the only way you know for sure is by checking dimensions. There might be other ways, but I'm not sure what they are, and no one's really sharing, at least I didn't find any good sites sharing, explanations of all the different types. They might be out there. Certainly was not an exhaustive search, but these are quick release fittings, and it's the little spring fit fitting on the end there, valve on the end there to keep the hydraulic fluid in the hose when you are disassembling it. So that part works reasonably well. This side, not quite as much. They do come with caps, which I will put on here. That's because this is a new one. None of the fittings I had here came with any caps. When you're dealing with 10,000 psi, it's kind of important to keep things clean and not get dirt in the system, because you can cause excessive wear pretty easily. Also interesting, I learned a bit about like hydraulic pumps just in searching it, trying to find more information, and it's fascinating the kind of situations you can run into when you're dealing with a hydraulic system. For example, a motor-powered hydraulic pump, either electric or gasoline or some other power drive pump, cavitation can become a serious issue, where the cavitation will cause wear in the metal. So that cavitation is basically moving a solution so quickly that the bubbles, that free gases that are diffused into the solution come out of the solution, form bubbles, and then pop again. And that popping action can they thought they were going to be able to possibly generate thermonuclear fusion using cavitation sort of methods with sound waves or other methodologies, and it's an immense amount of energy in a very small spot, and it basically blows chunks of metal off of surfaces. So hydraulics are no joke, and something to be taken very seriously. So working on this guy, I am going to be very careful to try and get it right. First step in disassembly is getting off this locking nut that holds the whole assembly in, and I assume that the gasket I need to get to is right under here. I do have a blow up of this, I just haven't looked for it yet, so I need to find that. So in order to get this guy, I need to make a tool to undo it, and so I made this for a camera project a while ago. And what I thought I would do is take a couple of these guys, and these ends fit inside here, and make some adapters that fit inside this guy over here. So this is about 1/8 by 1/8. I need to figure out what this depth is and just make this a little bit shallower than that. And it should be pretty quick. Alrighty, so we got the pins mounted in a 5C collet holder. And this thing will let me switch every 30 degrees rotation so I can do the 90s because I want to make this square. So I found my 0 first. And I just lowered this guy gently until I got a light touch off. And I can set my 0 here, that's my Z0. And then I need to come off to the side, and we want to go down a total of 75 thousandths ultimately. But we're going to go top down, so I didn't dress the side of this. So let me just bring this over until I just touch. That was not just touching. Someday I'll learn to do touch-offs. Work my way down to 75 thousandths. And there we are, 75 thousandths. Just get that cleaned up. And go back up. And then we take this guy. And get it to go 90 degrees. And we're going to come down. I thought about milling this because it would be faster, but a Rockwell of 64 is going to make that kind of impossible. All right, one down, one to go. So I got the second one right. I got the flat oriented with the flat, but the first one, I didn't check it and it's way off, sorry. Let's see out here. Anyways, I'll just tighten on something other than the flat and I'll be okay. But that was a really stupid mistake. There they are, straight on. All right, although I made a couple mistakes, it still fits almost perfectly. And so I can unscrew this piece. One of the pieces that gets replaced in the more advanced replacement spares kit is this brass lock nut. So we are good to go here. That worked out. That was very smooth. Now that I've loosened this guy, the first wiper is inside here, and I believe that is this black plastic one right here in this kit. And so I will replace that. That'll be interesting to get to. It's a little bit of a cutout maybe. I don't know, that's gonna be tough. That's a hard plastic too. I'm not sure how this whole inside section comes out. It is, it's got a spring. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna have to play around with that. There is a locking nut in here that holds the spring attachment, but I can't tell from the drawing, which came from the manufacturer about the exploded parts diagram, whether you need to remove that or not. It doesn't even show the nut on there, so I'm not even sure that this is exactly right because this might be an older revision of the same part. So not quite sure. Let's see if I can just pull the piston up and out. Okay. Oh, the spring's holding it in. Okay. Well, I guess I need to loosen that part in there. So that will be a socket of some kind. Interesting. So how do you secure that part from rotating to undo it? That's an interesting quandary, isn't it? Maybe you need to have this guy in and tight when you undo that other thing. That's entirely possible. Having never done this before, I bet you Adam would just go, oh yeah, you just do A, B, and C. It's easy. Adam's got quite a lot of experience with hydraulic systems. If you don't know who I mean by Adam, which seems unlikely, A-Bomb79, got a great channel. Learned a ton from him when I was starting out. I don't really see why this would prevent it from rotating, however. But let's see. Nope, still rotates freely. I'm not quite sure how you hold that guy in place to make it, to loosen it. and I can't risk scoring the outside of it. And the piece that sits on top, which they're calling the saddle, is not hollow, so I can't loosen it through the saddle and hold that guy in place. So I'm really not sure. I might have to actually make a custom threaded piece that'll fit in here. Trying to figure out what these threads are. Make a custom threaded piece that fit in there so that that's hollow, that the socket will fit down so I can hold on to something. Because I'm really not quite sure how I'm going to loosen this guy. Intriguing. So here is a spacer. So I just popped it upside down, spacer, and it looks like it was flat on top, flanged on the bottom. So I have this thread checker over here, and it looks like this is 1'8" threads. If I happen to have a 1'8" bolt, I could just drill out the center of it, and that could be handy. Let me go see if I do. I was silly attempting to try and cut that with a hacksaw. It would have taken forever, even though this isn't a hardened bolt. So I took it over to the bandsaw, cut it off, and now I got on the lathe and I cleaned up the face and put a nice chamfer on it. Now I'm just going to drill a clearance hole for that socket. This is a 5/8 inch bit. I went up one more size to give myself plenty of room in case the bolt is not centered in there, but that still gives enough bite. So hopefully I'll be able to tighten the bolt enough that I'll be able to unloosen this other guy and then get it off after. A lot of mysteries. Alrighty, so we're gonna thread this guy on in. See if the combination oh, look at that. That was pretty easy. Couldn't even touch it before. And interesting, that nut covers up a slotted screw that I guess is holding the spring-loaded portion in. So now that I've got the cap nut off, which I guess is to just protect that, it's reverse threads. So we had to pull the thread all the way under, all the way down, and now it's fallen in. So we'll have to figure out how to put that back. And there's some new seals to replace that came with this kit. Boy, this is a nasty feeling thing. Oh yeah, it's totally gummed up and nasty. Oh, and there's part of my problem. Completely fallen apart. So I found where the retaining ring is that came in this kit. It's right here. So it came with another spare retaining ring for there. And this part and the washer, so I can replace those pieces and hopefully it'll be good to go, except now I've got the piece fallen in, so I got to figure out how to get that back. I'm not quite sure what the trick was to assemble this nicely. Oh, and these pieces are split. That's very interesting. So these copper pieces right here, a very, very close fit to the shaft, or they're not copper, they're brass, it looks like. Yeah, this old one is completely gummed up. I'm just going to cut it off with a pair of cutters, side cutters. Rather than stress trying to get it off. And then I've got a new washer to replace the existing one there, which is all gummed up too. So we'll just replace all those. We'll clean this up with some alcohol and go from there. By the way, in the instructions, these split bushings are called bearings, so they're what slide up and down the inside of the sleeve to keep the thing centered. So I'm just setting this here gently so you can see it. So there's bearing number 1. There is bearing number 2. This is gummy too. I'm going to clean this up. So there's a little bit of a burr on this guy, and the instructions say to put the burr towards the seal. And then the seal goes on, like so. And that is all she said about that. So we're in and we're good. Now, of course, we got to get this back in. That'll be a trick in and of itself. So I couldn't figure out how I was going to get the threaded rod back to start in here. I tried several different things, but apparently you take off the fitting down here, and underneath there is a roll pin. Just doing a little bit of searching around. So let's see if that's the case. Oh yeah, look at that. Now I'm just feeling kind of silly. Looks like they used some kind of Loctite on that fitting. But now I wouldn't have to have fought with this. I don't know if you can see that in there. There is a screw to pull the bottom, to release the bottom of the spring. Son of a gun. I almost took that part off too, but I thought there was another way to do it. And well, we were so wrong. When it's stuck, you can always rely on impact tools to release them. So now the spring of a thing comes out, and I didn't have to fight with this so much. So now I can get this guy started. His threads are a little ginked up. I'm going to clean them up, and we'll get that started in here and then put it back. I had no idea. Should have done a search first, but I thought I could figure it out. Anyways, so what I did was I unscrewed this out of the... It goes right up here on the top of this. This is the bottom, and it threads all the way in the top and sets the return spring tension. And I just tightened it down until it popped out, thinking that was a good solution. But now we need to fix this. So we will. You can get a long slotted Phillips. It's just a Phillips screwdriver here. And we can just start it and tighten it right up. So now we can reassemble this guy. So the spring is in, and it's, oops, I keep losing these, and these are not good. These bearing, bronze bearing pieces are not good to drop. There we go, got it started. I had to magnetize the screwdriver just a little bit. Now, I suspect that they used some Loctite originally, or maybe that's paint, but it kind of looks like there was some Loctite on here. Hopefully this will seal reasonably well again, because there's a special kind of Loctite for hydraulics, which I don't have any of at the moment. So if this ends up leaking, I will order some. But in the meantime, we'll just make sure it's good and tight. Now this guy keeps this whole thing centered, and is also a sort of a bearing guide for the outside. So of course we drop it on the concrete. That's just wonderful. Has a beveled side which goes in. Got to make sure it's clean. This hydraulic fluid really makes everything so slippery, which I guess is part of what it's supposed to do. But okay, there we go. And now I can bring this guy, the spring load, spring tension part back. It's supposed to be just a little proud here. Now to tighten this guy, we're going to use the impact, because it has the advantage where very little force holding it in place can do a lot of tightening. So that looks pretty good. Last but not least, we got to replace the gasket on this guy. And so I've got this picking tool here, and even though it's an inexpensive one, it seems like it just gets right in there. This way, so the big side goes up this way. Oh, that actually went in pretty smoothly. Okay. Alrighty, so it's all back together. Let's see how it does. Looks like it's going pretty smoothly. It doesn't feel like there's any air in the system. I'm not quite sure how you bleed it or whether it self-bleeds in some way, shape, or form. Because obviously this thing was completely empty, which would leave a bunch of air at the bottom between where the bottom of seal sits and the entry point. But it doesn't feel like there's any air in it. Just maybe a tiny bit. Maybe a tiny bit. I'm not quite sure how you bleed it. Maybe that nut and screw thing in the middle, you loosen them and you let some air by. I'm not really sure. The wiper and seals are a little stiff still. So it doesn't go down smoothly yet, but I assume that'll probably fix itself with time. Also, one thing that I don't have now, I took this top seal off again, the locking nut, and looked in there, and there's no fluid getting by the bottom seal. So when I took this apart last time, this whole section here above the bottom of the seal was full of hydraulic fluid that had blown by, and that's not happening now. So that's a good sign. So I do hear air there. Maybe some air leaks by through around the nut, but hydraulic fluid's viscous enough that it can't. I know that sort of feature works to the advantage sometimes of hydraulic systems, where it's not an absolute perfect seal as far as airtight's concerned, but hydraulic fluid's viscous enough that it can't make it by the various seals. But it does work very smoothly now, and it doesn't leak fluid all over the place. I was losing tons and tons of fluid just welled up here immediately, and you put any pressure on it, it does feel like there's just a little bit of air in there. But you get a bunch of fluid coming up, welling around this almost immediately because every seal was shot in this whole thing, especially the bottom seal. So I think we're good there. All right, to complete this project, I had to make two tools. I already had made this one in a previous project, but I had to make some new pin inserts for it that would be square, that would match the seal on the top of this guy. These threads are such a good fit, it compresses air in there every time you tighten it on. So to get this lock nut off, you can see the ones I made last time. These are narrow, thin ones for camera parts, a specific camera lens I was working on. And I made this piece, which at first blush you may think you don't need, but you still might need it because I think you have to remove that lock nut and then lower the threaded rod into the top of the shaft so that the back of the spring will be clear. I didn't verify that, but there wasn't a lot of extra space with the spring when I just had the thread started in the top part here. So you may still have to get this off, in which case you're going to need something like this to stop this from rotating. You wouldn't be able to, pump this up a little bit and then grab it with something because you damage it, and then it would damage the top wiper, so that wouldn't be a good idea. So that's pretty much it. The kit, like I said, there are two kits for this. I ordered the simple kit, and then there's a more complete kit. So I ordered the standard repair kit, and there's a premium repair kit. The premium repair kit also includes the split bushings that are the bottom bearings of the shaft, the pair of those. It also replaces the bushing on top here that is the sleeve bearing that guides the top of the shaft. So those will all get replaced too if they're worn. The tube and other assemblies do not get replaced and are not replaceable if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, this is a very interesting project. I learned a lot. I know I made a real serious sidetrack there and false start thinking I had to remove this to get that out. But if you look at this drawing, it doesn't show any pin or anything. It actually shows that this is screwed through the bottom, which I couldn't understand what they meant because there's nothing down here. So I still don't know what they mean by this drawing. So I'm guessing that even though this supposedly applies to this cylinder, this is either older or they make multiple models. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you had a good time. I learned something. Hope you did too.